presentation, we again dive into the topics. Xueli and come to me on stage. Xueli will dive into the topics which are very important in the industry as well, because the integration of 5G, not only have a separate 5G network, it's not useful to have this. And you will cover in your presentation aspects. I already mentioned it this morning in my presentation speak. The OPC UA, which is very important to get the connection between different machines and different assets in the fabrics.
Yeah.
And now I am very happy to get the findings of Xueli An. She is research manager with Huawei Technologies in Düsseldorf. Xueli, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you everyone who is here. And I'm very happy to share with you about this very important topic, OPC UA and 5G integration. And I'm also very happy to announce, actually, for all the talk I have today, we have a white paper support. So basically, it's the same as the previous work. You can find the white paper online. And I just give you a very brief overview why we want to discuss this topic and why this is so important. What are the technical challenges for 5G to be utilized in the industrial domain? Okay, so before we come to the main topic, I want to show you a picture. Let me just try to see. Okay, it's coming. So on the left picture, I think if you are working for the 5G domain, you probably know this famous triangle, because at the beginning of the 5G, a lot of experts sitting together and say, what will be the difference between 4G and 5G? And then they come to this concept we want to tackle the traditional mobile business, but with extended performance called EMBB. And at the same time, we want to support the verticals. And then we have this massive machine type of communication, and we want to support ultra reliable and low latency communication. So at the beginning of 5G SIA, what we did, sorry, it's a very small word, but I just want to illustrate a lot of OT partners and ICT partners that we are sitting together and then try to map all the industrial use cases to this figure to see, okay, which use cases are in the domain of utilizing 5G. And then we come to this kind of use cases mapping. And later on, we also realized what are the important use cases and what are the technical challenges we want to resolve. So basically, all these use cases are not imagination from the ICT players, but these use cases are coming from the real life of the industrial domain, for example, factory automation or the process automation. So it reflects what is the current situation, and also it reflects what are the future trends. And then we want to understand how to really implement these use cases using 5G technologies, and what would be the challenge. This is one example use case, because at the beginning, what we figure out is this control-to-control and also the motion control use case actually are very challenging. And we also feel these are the type of use cases which may make a difference. So if you utilize a 5G at a really higher level to support application which do not demand performance, actually there might be no difference with Wi-Fi. And then, but if you come to the domain, actually you want performance, you want latency, you want reliability, like my colleague Ati presented in the previous talk, then 5G will make a difference. So this is also the figure actually is coming really at the early stage, and in Ati's talk you also see an updated version. So basically we want to really understand if you talk about this control to control, and how does this reflect into the use case and the topology, and what are the detailed requirements. So this is actually quite fascinating for the ICT people like myself, because when we talk about the terminals, so we usually think about the smartphones, right? This is our usual approach. But we come to a new type of terminals which may utilize 5G services, then this actually become very different domain. And then we realize, for example, they have a different type of reliability, different type of latency. So for example, if you think about it, you have a huge machine which has multiple controllers, and then the controller want to sync the information with each other, then this is may not be the same as you want to use a smartphone to make a phone call. So that's the reason, like, we dive into these use cases and get the numbers, and then want to see how like how 5G could support. And later on, we work with OPC Foundation. So because we understand the OPC UA is a very important specifications, and the technology utilized widely by different type of industrial use cases. And then they have a dedication to explore some further technologies, for example, like how to apply the OPC UA to the industrial domain down to the field level. So this actually have the similar mindset as 5G SIA. So we say, why not like we try to first think, if we want to utilize 5G with the applications, actually utilize the OPC UA as the framework, and then how to really enable this happening. So basically, this project is really tracing, I think, 3 to 4 years back, and then we have 2 phases. In the first phase, we are sitting together with the experts from 5G SIA and also the OPC Foundation, and then we lay out some important aspects, for example, the architecture. And then we also think like this, if you want to really integrate the 2 domains together, you need to think about how to map your transport and how to map your quality of service, and then what would be the gap. So if there is any gap that we should be addressed in the standardization. And then on the right side, so this is one of the webinar we make, but I think this is also very good practice. So I think if you visit the OPC Foundation booth, you can see this this demo wall in a larger scale and also updated technology. So back then, what we do is we try to really integrate a different type of industrial controller via the 5G technologies, and it works really perfectly fine. But that was a simple demo. After that, we also want to work like together with OPC Foundation to see, because they have like some further dive into the use cases, and we want to see how 5G could play a role in the whole story. So what we did at first is, of course, the use case deep dive. It's very important for the ICT partners to understand, like, we want to see the use cases in real, not only a certain part of the use case. So not only to say like device A want to communicate with device B. We want to see the whole life cycle. So thanks to the OPC Foundation colleagues, they really help us to go through this process. And then on the top side, there are like a major phase. So for example, at the beginning, you need to have the what we call the application engineering phase, because you need to configure the different controllers with the right information model. So I will not go to dive into the details, but this indicated to you, before you really set up the connection, you need to actually to configure your different controllers with different logic, and then you need to specify the right information. And then afterwards, you have this security configuration. So basically, then your engineer could specify what is the security policies and rule out this within your network. Then as the next step, you have the network configuration. So basically here it means like which kind of device need to connect to which kind of the other devices. So you need to provide or configure the right network information, and then you also need to specify the right quality of service. So basically here is more or less where the magic begins to happen. Because it's not like we want to have multiple devices without any quality of service or based on the best effort. So because we want to handle the use cases really down to the field level, so that at this moment, then this quality of service configuration is very important. Then we come to the system integration. So this is where the communication manager on the, if you see the red figure, and then it can bring the different component together. So basically, what we call this is the life cycle of the use case. So basically, from before you really bring the connectivity on, and then how do you specify the controller, how do you define the functions, and then how do you bring them together by the integration. Then we change another viewpoint. So after understand what happens in the OPC domain, and then we see, now we want to bring the 5G in. And how does this 5G play a role in the whole setup? So then we begin to, first on the right side, then we say, how about like, what would be this 5G link play a role? So it's not like we can play 5G anywhere, because this would be full wireless. Of course, this would be the dream of the ICT people, but we also understand, like you come to the industrial domain, wireless and where the technologies will coexist for a really long time. Then in this case, then we come to the right figure. So this indicates like the options. So for example, your OPC applications could be a full 5G device. You have the 5G module, but they can also based on, for example, the CPE technologies. So basically, with one CPE, you can connect to different 5G OPC applications, but then the CPE plays a role as the 5G module. And then you can also have another option, what we call the option 3. Actually, the OPC device application itself is not 5G based, but we call it on the right side of the UPF. So it means like it's still in the industrial domain, but it needs to communicate with the other OPC applications, actually, which is 5G technology empowered. So based on different options, actually, we can understand what is exactly the needed technologies in order to support all scenarios. Then we come up to this architecture figure. So this is actually the figure we begin to discuss at the very, very beginning of this project. It looks very simple because we try to simplify the 5G system on the downside, because we don't want to really bother all the complexities to the OT partners. And then we simply illustrate what are really the key major component in the 5G, which is need to interact with the OPC domain. And the same as above, we try to abstract the OPC layer as well, and only indicate what are the necessary interface. Because one of the important principles we have is we want to keep the independency of the two different technology domains. We don't want the two domains to closely tackled with each other, because this will be not an easy design. So then we come up this solution, we only want to look into the interface, right? If you already have the OPC domain and you have the 5G domain, what would be the right interface in order to make the two domains talk to each other? So this is what we call the interface approach. Then you see this interface, the major interface contains A and B, so this is for the transport, and then D and D prime, so this means this is used for the configuration. So basically, how you want to specify your quality of service and what are the requirements. Basically, these are the interface are very important. So later on, we will also utilize some procedures to verify if the current interface would be sufficient for OPC way to integrate with 5G. As I mentioned, this quality of service actually really at the core of this whole work, because the ultimate goal for the whole integration is you want to transmit one packet from the industrial domain, and this packet should be transported via the 5G and reach the industrial domain with the right quality of service. So this is why quality of service mapping, management, and all this concept is actually at the whole core of the project. So this is the figure, actually, what we learned from OPC side. They already defined this mechanism to say how to utilize this quality of service category and also the priority label in order to map to the right mechanism to transport the packet. So this is the mechanism they defined in the way they want to keep the independency with the transport. So basically, then you can utilize OPCUA in all type of technologies. You don't really need to understand what is underneath transport technology you are using. So this is a very clean design. Then the next question is how 5G come into this picture may make a difference. So this is the 5G Qs model, regardless of what type of the other industrial domains using. And if you are coming from the ICT side, probably you are familiar with this model. But if you are not, no need to worry. So basically, what we want to show here is in the 5G domain, we have this kind of mechanism called control plane. So control plane is a set of the network functions to set up the bearer, so the channel you need to transmit your packet with the right quality of service. Then in this way, on what we see OPC as an application on the right side, and on the left side, it means like on the UE side. So basically, on the right side, you can specify this kind of quality of service to the 5G exposure interface, and then talk to the policy function. So then in this way, we already have this interface defined in 5G to make this happen. So therefore, if we get the right information, then we can set up the right channel for the communication. Okay, so this is also important slides because that important thing is like I tell you how the quality of service management on the OPC side and how this is done in the 5G side. And then we need to put them together. So we come up with this overall design architecture to see like if you want to really make the connection happens across different domains, what other network functions are related, and which network function will define and will transmit and will try to map the quality of service. So within our white paper, you can have like a more detailed explanation how this works. Then for the quality of service mapping, so I want to just dig a little bit further about some details, then you can also have a feeling. Drawing the Qs mapping. So this is also a quite important topic because we gave you the information how the two architectures could map and which functions are necessary. But then the important question is how do you really map the Qs? So what you see on the left figure is kind of like an example. So basically, what we see is you have your, in the OPC side, you have the quality of service definition, for example, based on this priority label and the quality of service category. And then on the 5G side, we have what we call 5QI. So therefore, these two tables have to be matched. So for example, it's similar if you want to drive on a highway, and then when I pass from one gateway and reach the other highway, I should know, like, should I drive on the fast lane or the slow lane? And then which is the fast lane? So these two fast lanes should somehow integrate with each other so I can drive continually. So from the philosophy-wise, it's that simple. But from technology-wise, it's not that simple. Because it means like, if you want to define this kind of a mapping, then you need to actually let two standardization organizations talk to each other, because this table need to be standardized. If there's no standardization, then it means like if vendor A have their own table and vendor B have another table, then this may not work with each other. But then on the other side, we have also another observation. Within OPC UA-FX, this stands for the field level communication. They also try to specify the quality of service with extended field. So basically, if they have like a more extended field, this could be even utilized by the 5G directly to do the mapping. So the key message here is, it's still not fully clear how do you do the mapping, either based on this standardized mapping table, or we say the OPC Foundation could specify a complete set of quality of service that 5G can utilize. But in either way, we think this is feasible, but it depends on how industry try to adopt. Okay, I have only 1 minute left, so I will try to be faster on this part because this is some details about the procedures. So basically, it means like once you have all this mechanism, you need this what we call the connectivity manager. So this is also defined by OPC, and then you need to work out this whole procedures in order to understand where are the gaps. So during our study, we do find some parameters actually are missing. And then these parameters we also want to discuss with 3GPP. So this is where the 5G standardization happens, then to see if this kind of parameters could be considered for the standardization activity. then this also gave a view of the integration, like after we work out all the procedures, then we work on the message flows, and then this is also one of the exercises we did during the project, which is actually also gave the overall picture and how this procedure from different domains could work with each other. Okay, so then this also brings to the conclusion of my slides. So I'm very happy to give you a very brief introduction of this work. And then actually this is, I think, like a project that we run to 2 phases and then over 3 or even 4 years. A lot of colleagues contributed to the work. So today you only see me, but there's a big group of experts from 5G ACIA, also from the OPC Foundation. So I see Peter is also here. So I want to say really thank you. Without the cooperation from different organizations, I think this may not happen. So I would really encourage everyone sitting here to think about it. Because if you want to bring 5G to the industrial domain, it's not simple to install a base station. It's not like you buy a 5G module. You need to think about what are the existing technologies you are using in your factory, and if that technology will work together with 5G. So this is very important. And this also brings to the conclusion to my talk. If you have any questions, please visit our booth, and I'm very happy to discuss with you for some further details. Thank you very much.
Applause for Xueli. And maybe you have one or the other question right now for her. Yeah. I keep it.
How did you approach connecting the field device, accessing the 5G network? Because most controllers we have now don't have 5G modems. So did you install a separate modem on each controller, or what's the solution there?
Yeah, a very good question. So this is come to the slides. I say we have 3 options. You can have the 5G module, but of course, at this moment, this is still unfortunately not available because the major module is for the consumer device. Within 5G, actually we have a dedicated topic on this to discuss like how to really define this or enlarge the whole ecosystem to be complete in order to do so. Then the usual approach we have now is use a CPE. So it's kind of like a router. Then you can connect your device to the CPE. But I would say this is good for the POC phase. But if you really want to bring to the production, this might not be the scenario for all type of case. So I would say like I really want to see this industrial 5G module may happen in the next 2-3 years. Then we can really bring this to the real production. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions for Xueli? I have a question. The aspects you are mentioning, are they already part of the standard? So this is not an additional work, but they are already, the OPC aspects, all what you mentioned are already in the standard. So there is a common understanding in all parts of the world, right? So it's not a question of using it just in Europe or just in US or in China. When you install it and the aspects you mentioned, when you fulfill all the aspects in your facility in Europe, you can transfer it one-to-one to China, for example.
Exactly. So very good question. So on one side we have OPC UAFX, and the other side is a 3GPP.
Yeah.
So the role of a 5G ACIA is to really bridge the 2 specifications together, and then we try to identify if there are anything is missing. So from the 3GPP side, I think the ICT partners are easy to impact. Like we could try to make a proposal to say, hey, we find out that this is missing, please add. And then on the OPC side, we also have our interface with the OPC Foundation, so we can give them our findings, and then they can consider in their next update.
But OPC Foundation is available, or the technology is accepted in China or in Asia as well?
This is a global initiative, so maybe I will put the question to OPC Foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I see. That's very diplomatic. Thank you very much, Xueli.
Thank you.
I got it. And we have to head over to our next presentation. So again, an applause for Xueli.